wage agreement concluded in 2011 was still extended by August of 2012 that we now know, correct?
That's correct.
It is an agreement that had as one of its parties Lonmin, right?
Yes, that's right.
NUM.
Yes.
And AMCU was not a party to that agreement, was it?
No, they were not party to negotiating that agreement.
Neither was the rock drill operators as an entity party to that agreement, am I right?
Yes, not as an individual entity, no.
Now, I take it at that time there was an appreciation on behalf of Lonmin that the rock drill operators demand for an increase was with some merit to it. Am I right?
I'm sorry, Chair, I didn't catch the last part of that question.
There was an appreciation on behalf of Lonmin that the demand by the rock drill operators had some merit for a wage increase.
Which demand?
Want for more money.
But I mean, at the point in time that they came to see me, or during the wage negotiations, so it's not clear to me.
Let's locate it in August of 2012.
Well, when they tabled their demand to me, and I thought about it, as I've said, there was a discrepancy between our pay grades and some of our competitors. So there was some case.
Wasn't it more significant than that? That what had happened was that Impala had given an increase earlier in the year. That had been followed by Amplats. Both of them had given increases to rock drill operators. That's correct, isn't it?
Yes, so Impala had given increases to the entire workforce. Anglo had adjusted so Impala, the entire workforce, including rock drill operators, Anglo had adjusted their salaries just prior to that.
So the increases given by Impala and Platts did put some kind of pressure, I take it, on... Well, let me ask another question first. You were aware of the fact that those increases had been given?
Yes.
I take it you've got some kind of information network. You tell each other what's going on. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. We were aware of it.
Okay, you were aware of it. And that then must have put some pressure on Lonmin because you were out of line. Your competitors were giving more money to their workers than you were, and that might have caused dissatisfaction and so forth in your workforce. Yeah,
well, that was certainly in my mind that dissatisfaction could develop. So, from the perspective that there was this gap, I suppose a request to make an adjustment may have some merit.
Yes, there was that appreciation that there is some merit to that claim for an increase in salary, correct? By rock drill operators.
Well, yes.
Yes?
As I've said, I mean, I responded to that request, so I thought there is some merit in it.
Yeah, but I want to locate the appreciation not at your level alone. I want to locate it at the level of the company as Lonmin.
Well, I'm thinking that once I escalated it to the executive, that appreciation was then there because they also reacted to it.
So there was no bar for Lonmin and or NUM or parties to the 2011 agreement to reopen the conversation. Am Am I right?
There were, I'm sorry, I'm not hearing the question properly. There was no?
There was nothing precluding Lonmin and NUM in appreciation of the legitimacy of the demand to reopen the 2011 conversation.
Well, I suppose not, except for the fact that when the request of the demand was tabled, it was very clear that the guys didn't want any union involvement in the discussions. So, had we involved the NUM, I'm not quite sure how credible those discussions would have been, seen from the eyes of the rock-wool operators.
No, but there was nothing precluding both you parties to that agreement, because that was the bar, was it not? What hindered any conversation around salaries was this 2011 agreement, was it not? That it was still extant and it was still going to endure until 2013. Am I right?
Well, that was one of the issues.
Correct.
So I suppose by mutual agreement you could reopen it.
And there was nothing to preclude you from doing it.
Well, no.
As Lonmin, that is.
No.
You just elected not to reopen the subject, despite your appreciation about the legitimacy of the demand.
Well, the other issue is that wage agreement doesn't refer only to rock-wool operators. It covers people a lot broader than that. It covers all the occupations. So, this issue was isolated to rock-wool operators, and at that stage, it was rock-wool operators at one portion of the operation.
Rock-wool operators at one portion of the operation. When did Amplats give its increase? I think Impala was earlier in the year, but when was Amplats? What is, in other words, the time gap, the lapse of time between Amplats's increase and the approach that you received from the career rock-wool operators?
Yeah, it was sort of just before. And in fact, I'm not sure that Anglo had given their increases yet, but they at that point in time they were in discussion. So they would have given the increases right around June, when these discussions started with.
Well, that's a date we can ascertain, I imagine. Did anyone in Lonmin think it might be sensible to preempt any approach from the all workers? The climate had now changed. Clearly, Amplats's increases and Impala's increases would have put pressure on Lonmin to give an increase as well, because otherwise you would have a discontented workforce and they talk among each other. Isn't that so? So wouldn't it have been sensible for Lonmin to have preempted any approach from the workers once they knew that these other increases had come?
Yeah, it may well have been, and I know we were in discussions around increasing bonuses and increasing rock-wool bonuses and that sort of thing. But I think Impala gave the increases around about mid-May. Anglo was soon after that, and even before we had too much time to think about it, this demand was on the table. So
never mind Amplats, didn't the very fact that Impala had given increases change the situation, create an atmosphere in your part of the platinum mining industry that it was inevitable that there would have to be increases quite soon? Because surely Impala must have put you people under pressure, surely, by the increases they gave.
There was a bit of that, yes.
Mr. De Costa, the wages of rock-drill operators under the 2011 agreement could still be revisited if there was good cause to do so, no?
Well, maybe, but the issue is that once you reopen the negotiations, or once you revisit the agreement, it is not that easy to revisit it on a selective basis. So once you revisit it, you open up the agreement and you start wage negotiations all over again, which is not really something that we wanted to do.
Even when there is good cause to do so.
Well, as I pointed out, there may have been some merit regarding the rock drill operators, but not necessarily the entire workforce.
It may very well be, but there was nothing precluding it. See, my difficulty is if I follow the evidence, the argument is you could not deal with the demand of the RDOs because there was still a wage agreement that was in place and that was going to renew until 2013. Was that the reason why this salary increase demand was not seriously taken up by Lonmin?
Yeah, I think as I've said in my evidence previously, that the fact that the wage agreement was still in force was a reason.
Correct.
It wasn't the reason.
Let's explore that as a reason. It was not one that was such a high bar because as parties to that agreement, you could amend it if good cause is shown. Correct?
Well, as I've said, I mean, if you're going to reopen the wage negotiations just for rock drill operators, it would be a very difficult thing to do.
You resist in the proposition I'm putting to you, that if good cause was shown, there was nothing precluding you from revisiting the agreement.
Does my learned friend refer to you as Lonmin, or Lonmin and NUM as the two parties to the collective bargaining agreement?
Lonmin and the parties to the 2011 agreement.
Okay, so that the parties would be the NUM, UASA, and Solidarity, as I have it. The point I'm making is that the wage agreement could be reopened, but having reopened it, and you only discuss issues around the rock drill operator increases, that might not go down so well. So then you end up renegotiating a wage agreement that you'd negotiated just a few months before that. So that is a bit of a complication.
Yes, maybe you anticipate in the direction I'm going. I haven't explored whether or not there are those factors implicated. I'm merely asking, as parties to that agreement, if there was good cause to amend any portion of it, it was still open for you to do so. Is that right?
I've said, by mutual agreement, you could reopen it.
And I want to suggest to you that the reason Lonmin was not interested in opening it is because you did not want to fully cover the demand that was raised by the rock drill operators as Lonmin. Okay, let me step back. It is a fact Lonmin was not interested in reopening the 2011 agreement when that impasse occurred. Am I right?
Yes, that's correct.
It is also correct that NUM, as a party to that agreement, was not interested in reopening discussions on the 2011 agreement despite the impasse. Am I right?
I don't know if they were not interested, that they didn't approach Lonman around it, but I can't say they weren't interested in it.
Chair, it needs more specificity. This is a very general proposition being put about NUM, and my learned friend must, in fairness to me as well as Mr. Da Costa, state whether he is of the view that there is evidence that NUM was approached to reopen the agreement, and if so, in what terms, when, and by whom?
Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt. The evidence, in fact, is quite clear on the point as far as I can remember. But I'm not sure that Mr. Semenya stated it entirely correctly. Let me endeavour to do that. If I'm wrong, he will correct me. My understanding is that NUM took up the stance, in fact, had meetings with the workers, to say there's nothing we can do to increase the wages because of the 2-year agreement. We've got to wait until next year, 2013. That was the NUM attitude. They appear to have done that, on the evidence we heard, through a misunderstanding of the provisions of the agreement. It was only when firstly, the commissioners drew attention to the actual wording of the relevant section of the agreement, which didn't do that. It just meant you couldn't engage in industrial action in order to get the wage terms changed. When Mr. Zakwana came, he made it quite clear that NUM could have negotiated. There had been an instance in the past where the inflation rate went up dramatically over a short period. It would have been possible to have negotiated, but it seemed clear from the evidence that knowledge which Mr. Zakwana hadn't filtered down to branch level at Marikana. And that was why the NUM people adopted the attitude, there's nothing, at the local ones, nothing we can do. They had meetings with the workers, in fact told them, there's nothing you can do, we must wait until 2013. I think that's an accurate statement of what happened. It's not suggested, though, on the evidence, that Lonman went to NUM and said, by the way, we'd like to reopen negotiations about the wages in the light of what's happened at Impala and Amplats. There's no suggestion that happened. Have I stated the position correctly, Mr. Smith?
Well, perhaps I can respond, Chair, if I may, because I think that it is important for my learned friends' questions to be put in a chronologically precise sequence so that Mr. Da Costa and I and the Commission are all aware of precisely when it is that my learned friend Mr. Semenya says that some intervention could have been contemplated. The meeting to which the Chair has referred is dealt with in the evidence of Mr. Setleli, and that was on the 9th of August 2012, once the RDOs had already taken the decision to embark on the strike action. He also testified that the question of 12,500 rand as an increase was never put to NUM. So that my learned friend's questions must...
NUM by whom?
Well, by anybody. It was never put to NUM, he says, and that's unchallenged. So my learned friend, with respect, needs just to put this aspect of his cross-examination in a full basis.
When you're stating the facts, there's one fact you've left out, and that the strikers were holding banners, cardboard boxes and cardboard placards saying 12,500 rand wages. So the demand for 12,500 may not have been formally communicated either by email or by a lawyer's letter to NUM, but they knew very well that 12,500 was the figure that the Rockville operators wanted.
Chair, I don't want to begin to argue our case now. That placard on the 10th of August outside the Lonman offices must be understood in conjunction with the by then very well known position of the RDOs that they did not want NUM involved in anything.
You've heard the debate between us, Mr. Semenya. Perhaps you can revisit your question and reformulate it in a way that avoids the objection that Mr. Tip raised, which has got some substance in it. But I don't think you need worry about having to reformulate your question, because I suspect the thrust of your question will still remain.
You can accept it from me, Mr. Da Costa, that an official of NUM addressed the workers who are RDOs to say that they will not open the debate because there's a 2-year agreement in place. Now, I'm just pointing that to you, that would be that was the attitude of NUM. And I've cleared with you what the attitude of Lonmin was, haven't I?
Yes, I think so.
Yes. So the real parties to the agreement did not want it altered, even if there was good and sound reason to do so in the light of you as Lonmin appreciating the legitimacy of the claim for a higher wage.
Well, I don't think that we wanted to reopen the wage negotiations, no.
You see, Lonmin as a corporate citizen would have been aware that South Africa was in some intractable position politically before 1990, right?
I believe so.
And there was an appreciation by those in leadership that there's no point in not negotiating with so-called terrorists. There must now be good ground to talk to them. That, as a corporate citizen, Lonmin was aware of it, correct? So formalism was put aside to answer to a very legitimate crying concern that was there politically. Am I right?
You're referring to the discussions around 1990 to end apartheid?
Correct.
I must assume that Lonmin as a corporate entity was aware of that.
That there are instances where, if a good cause is shown, there's no place for formalism. It's more important to avert a catastrophe that is looming. That's the measure of good judgment by a leader, is it not?
Well, possibly if it's clear that a catastrophe is looming, and that by engaging in negotiations, whatever, you can avert the catastrophe, it is a good thing to do, yes.
And I'm surprised, well, you do know, don't you, that the only request by the strikers on the copy was to talk to management.
I've covered this in my evidence early on in the commission. I don't know that was the only request. My understanding, and I wasn't directly involved in what was in the meetings and discussions going on at that point. My understanding was that the strikers in the copy wanted 12,500 rand, and that's what they wanted from management. And when they wanted management to talk to them, they wanted them to talk to them about the 12,500 rand. So, but I have said that I wasn't directly involved in the discussions around this issue at that time.
No, I know as an individual you're not, but Mr. Mokwena was representing Lonmin in these discussions around resolving the impulse, that you know.
Yes, I know that.
And I would expect that there would have been communication at management level that what the problem is, what the demands are, and whether or not they can be met. No?
Yes, and as I've said before in this commission, my understanding of the demand was get management to the copy and let them come and tell us how they're going to give us the 12,500 rand. That was my understanding. And the Chair, Mr. Semenya, is shaking his head. I assume he doesn't agree with me. But I said I wasn't directly involved in the discussions, and that was, but having heard what came out of those discussions, that was my understanding of it.
I accept it was your understanding, and it was the understanding of Lonmin, that one, the demand by strikers on the copy was, we want to talk to management. Correct?
They wanted management to come to the copy.
Yes, that was one part of the demand. Correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And it's a demand Lonmin was not prepared to accede to.
It was, and I believe I've covered that in my evidence as well, as to why Lonmin was not prepared to accede to it.
No, but I haven't asked the why part. That's why I'm saying you're anticipating my questions. Mr. De Costa, it was a demand Lonmin was not prepared to accede to.
Yes.
And that was despite being offered an armored escort to go to the copy. Is that right?
It may well be. I wasn't in those discussions, but if you tell me that was offered, I can't dispute it.
Now, I'm a little perturbed. The representations and the stance and the position that Mr. Mokoena was taking in relation to his discussions even with General Mpembe, were they mandated? Is it something that you as the executive knew to be the proper position he was taking?
I'm sure he was mandated, but just to make it clear, I don't sit on the executive committee. I'm not a member of the executive committee that provides these mandates.
But you're part of senior management, and if you were, as the duty roster tells us, the one on duty on the 16th, and all the strikers wanted is to have a conversation, to have a discussion with management. That would have been a matter beyond your scope?
For me to go and have a discussion with the strikers?
No. For you as representing Lonmin to have management or the employer as they were describing Lonmin to go to the mountain.
Me personally?
You or anyone who would be duly authorized by Lonmin to go and meet the strikers on the copy.
You see, this is it's a little difficult for me, Chair, because I mean, I'm a part of senior management, but I don't provide that sort of mandate or make those sort of decisions on behalf of Lonmin. So, unfortunately, me personally, it's a bit difficult. I have, however, previously in my evidence elaborated on the fact that the executive had these discussions and decided not to go to the copy.
No, by the way, that the trade union presidents, both Mr. Zakwana and Mr. Mutuntu, had been there on the Wednesday and had spoken to the strikers from the safety and security of an Inyala through loudhailers and so on. Did you know that?
Yes, I am aware of that. I think Mr. Mutuntu got out. And
Mutuntu then went back and also spoke, I think, on the Thursday. But on the Thursday he actually got out of the Inyala. But on the Wednesday he and Zakwana remained in the Inyala. Now, you knew that.
I'm aware of that.
So I understand that the Lonmin executive, and perfectly appropriately, was concerned for their safety if they went to the copy unprotected, as it were, because very awkward things could have happened. But were they informed of the fact that it's asked that someone go, he's been asked someone to go to the copy, it's possible that someone could go, as the trade union presidents did yesterday, and remain in an Inyala and speak to the strikers in that way? Or was that possibility not conveyed to them?
I'm not sure if it was, and it may well have been. But let me not elaborate. Mr. Semenya has asked me not to elaborate. So.
Now you're welcome to elaborate if you so choose.
Okay, well let me elaborate then. I mean, I've said it previously in my evidence. If the workers were asking for management, or if the employees were asking for management to come to the copy, to come and engage with them and talk to them about 12,500 Rand. Now you send an executive or a manager in Anyala. He can't put his head out because then it's dangerous. So they don't know who it is. They don't know if they know the person. They don't know if they trust the person. You've got some person sitting in Anyala speaking over a loudhailer, speaking to 3,000 angry people sitting on a copy, and the message that you're giving them is not particularly one that they would want to hear. I mean, that whole situation is just not conducive to getting to any kind of agreement. So, that put together with the risk of actually sending somebody there just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. That's my view, but I've said that before in the commission.
But those imponderables you are pointing to did not inform the decision of the executive committee of Lonmin not to go to the copy.
I'm not sure how Mr. Semenya can say that.
Well, because the consistent position that was uttered by Mr. Mokoena was that the only time that they will go to they will engage on this subject is if the workers come back to work, they lay down their weapons and they will talk to them through the union representatives. He did not mention the things you are mentioning now.
Chair, with respect, this is a debate for Mr. Mokoena to have. This is an unfair debate with this witness, and none of the executive members have given evidence yet. Perhaps my learned friend should pen that debate for the real people.
You respond to that point, Mr. Semenya. Godbing had the position this witness had in the company. There's only a limited amount of information he can give us. But anyway, how do you respond?
If it is a subject about which the witness is unable to tell us, he'll tell us that. I don't know what he knows. I don't know the information he knows. I don't know the meetings he has attended. I don't know whether this was even formally committed.
Hi, can you see anything? Hi, can you see anything? I can hear you saying that you see me. Okay, all right. All right, you can hear me and you can see me. Okay, cool. I can't hear anything, by the way. Okay, I can hear. It's fine. Go, go, go. Jesse. And then they're coming to us. Well, a very good afternoon to you, Natasha. It certainly has been a very shocking development that one of the men who was mentioned in Mr. X's testimony was shot and killed. Now, before proceedings really got underway this morning, Advocate Dalimpofu, who's representing some of the injured miners, mentioned to the Commission that some of the witnesses that he was representing, some of his clients, felt unsafe, and they felt that they had a target on their back because they believed that Bai's assassination or Bai's murder was an assassination attempt in response to some of the events or in response to some of the killings that his clients had participated in. It prompted the presiding judge, Ian Farlam, to then turn around and say, there's been quite a lot of murders and killings that have happened since the beginning of this particular commission, and he's asked the police to step up their efforts to ensure that absolutely no more violence and no more murders would occur in the Marikana area. But things are really quite tense at the moment, and we're not sure yet if any of the men who were friends or who were colleagues with Bai could possibly decide that they want to revenge or avenge his particular death. Okay.
That's it. No, when I got there, I saw that there was. I said, no, we're going. No.